Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time once again for your weekly wrap-up, and we've got a fun one this week. We're going to sit down with Major Nelson from Xbox, otherwise known as Larry Hyrb. Larry has been the face of Xbox for a very long time, well over a decade, and we're going to get to know him a little bit, learn how he got into the role that he's in at Microsoft and how that role has changed over the years as well. It's a very fun discussion. I shot it over the weekend, so let's roll that tape and get to it. So joining me now is Major Nelson, otherwise known as Larry Hyrb from Microsoft's Xbox division. Can I call you Larry or should I call you Major? What's the best way to address
Lon,
you?
you and I have virtually and somewhat known each other for a long time. So Larry, please call me Larry.
Okay, I will call you Larry. I am honored to do so. So first of all, I want to let everyone know how we know each other. So we've never actually met in person.
Nope.
But because I'm on one coast, you're on the other. But I started listening to your podcast in like 2005, 2006, right when the 360 was coming out. So, you were kind of an escape for me during a very stressful job that I was doing. So I wrote to you one day to just let you know that you were appreciated. But your origin at Microsoft goes back even further than that. So how did you get to where you are at Microsoft? Because it's kind of a unique role in the industry, I think.
I got to tell you, Lon, it's first of all, I am a fellow former resident of Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in Connecticut. I was born in New Haven, and I worked. I went to high school in Connecticut. I went to Syracuse University, to the Newhouse School of Communication, and out of college, I started working in radio. So I worked for about a decade in radio. I worked in Hartford for some of the stations that you're probably aware of, and while I was doing that, this was the mid-90s, Microsoft was about to launch Windows 95. And I had some friends that had kind of known somebody. And long story short is I ended up running communities for some of the what then was beginning of MSN 1.0. And I started running communities for MSN while that was my night job. So
and that was like online. That was like their online service thing. So you would log it in with your modem and everything else, right?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that was, as the kids say, that was my side hustle. My daily hustle was radio. That was my regular job. And soon I realized that I could make a lot more money on this web thing than I could in radio. And it went on for a few years, and then I got tapped on the shoulder by the rest of Microsoft saying, "Hey, you've worked in radio, you know music. Do you want to come help us launch a music service?" Yeah. So my wife and I moved from Connecticut to Seattle, it doesn't get any further away unless we move to
big move,
Hawaii.
Right. Yeah.
It was a big move for us. And I started working on the music team, and next to our offices, Lon, physically, like one hallway, the next hallway was this group of people that were working on some really cool stuff, and it turns out they were working on the original Xbox.
Oh, really? There's like a top secret skunk work kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and I was like, I'd be waiting to get into a meeting room, and the people coming out of the meeting room had like controllers and computers and games. I'm like, whoa, I got to get in on this. So,
let me in.
So, long story short,
now, were you a video gamer at the time?
Yeah, I was. I mean, my mom bought the, what was it? The Selectavision. It was the Sears version of the Atari 2600.
Okay, right. Yep. I remember that. Yep.
It was still wood grained.
Right.
But it was that, and I remember that, and I would, I even remember in high school, in our tiny little high school when they had computer labs, I begged the guy who ran the computer lab. I said, "Look, I'll buy you coffee if you open up the computer lab at 7 for an hour before school, so I can go in there and play games." And I used to play this old Atari game called Star Raiders. Mm-hmm. And
Is that the one with
that game
with the keypad?
Yeah, you could play with the keypad, but it was really like you were flying through space.
Right.
And I love that game. So, anyway, I went to Syracuse after high school and got into the nerd stuff, and anyway, went through, and so I moved out to Seattle and started working. And then I just got to know a lot of the folks on the Xbox team. And in 2003, 2002, they're like, "Hey, we want to do something with community. You've done community with Microsoft for a long time." I was doing it from Connecticut.
Right.
And as a vendor, would you come join the Xbox team? And I'm like, I'm a video gamer and I can work. Yes. I mean, I couldn't say yes fast enough.
Right.
And I went down there and went down. I stayed down there because they had then since moved to the another part of campus. We were next to a gravel pit, and it was kind of way, way, way off campus. And I just started working on there, and then I realized I'm like, this. It's kind of hard to describe when you realize I'm home. I felt so good there. I was so excited to go to work every morning. We were working on controllers. I had my dev kit, my Xbox dev kit, and I was learning how to be a developer and what it meant to be a developer and how it worked. And I learned all the underpinnings. And so it just started from there. And then in 2004 or 5, I started doing the podcast because, as we know, podcast is really just radio.
Right, sure.
And I started doing that. And then, here we are. Many, many, many years later, 3 consoles I've launched, multiple hundreds of controllers, it feels like, and hundreds of games as well.
And you become kind of the face of the product too. I think you're on the console. I boot you up, and there's Larry doing doing the Xbox.
Here I am sitting. I'm right here on the console. Yeah. And so what happened is we realized we wanted to have a conversation with gamers because gamers are really chatty. They love talking about they're passionate about what they do, and I love that. So I'm like, let's talk directly to them. So this is before the ages of YouTube and Twitch and Twitter, and so we were doing that all the time, and it was such a great way to talk directly to the audience. And to this day, I mean, everybody now has a TikTok and a Twitter handle and all that, but I still show up to work every day excited to learn more about what we're doing as a company, what we're doing for Xbox, what we're doing for gamers. I've been through a few heads of Xbox where Phil Spencer's been with us for the longest time now, and he is amazing, and he's got this mantra that when everybody plays, we all win, and we certainly believe that on the Xbox team.
And do people come to you and say, Larry, what are the gamers thinking? Do you feel like it's probably some pressure to try to keep up on the pulse of that because you're probably sitting in a meeting having to collect all of this stuff that you're getting in. How do you manage that?
I'll tell you, it's a little easier now because everybody just cracks open a browser and goes to reddit.com /r/Xbox One. So there's a lot of people that know, but I help them normalize the data and understand what the noise to signal ratio, what's noise and what's signal. And that's really the most important thing, is to find out what's really going on here. What are they asking for? Because sometimes they'll ask for something. They don't necessarily want this particular feature, but they want something that does something like that. And how can we build that in to the rest of the experience?
Now, when the community component of this role started, this was probably around 2004-ish, 2005?
Yep. Right before we launched Xbox 360.
Around that time was like when blogging became a thing, and everybody had to have a blog, and there was this short period of time where these big corporations, including Microsoft, were starting to let people in to see more than just kind of a sanitized message from the PR department. And I think, to a large degree, many companies, Microsoft kind of is the exception to that, I think, but many companies have, kind of gone back to that sanitized model of being very cautious about what's said and how things get communicated to the public. You've had a lot of free reign. That's always something that's intrigued me, that they trusted you to represent the company without having to watch these videos jump cutted with a bunch of edits and redactions and everything else. What's that been like? I mean, it was. I almost feel like you. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you kind of created your own job there.
Yeah, with that, you're absolutely right, Lon. And I'm convinced that if I were to try to do what I wanted to do today, what I'm doing, and if I were to try to go, it would be no, you can't do that. But because I've been doing it for so long, and I understand, I mean, I work on the engineering team, I work on the communications team. We're a very tight team. We understand how to tell stories. And this is a true story, Lon. I wake up every morning and go, God, I hope I don't screw this up today. Because I just love my job. I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love building products with our engineers and coming up with communication plans and whatnot. But it's heart-wrenching because it's difficult to do. I've described it as sometimes when you're blogging or tweeting or being out in the social space, it's like going into a mine. You're going to come out with your hands and feet blown off, or you're going to come out with piles of gold. You just don't know.
Right.
And fortunately, I've only had my hands and feet blown off once or twice, and come out with gold more times than not. Right. But it's been challenging. But I mean, there was a time. It helps that in the early days of Xbox, we just didn't have we were, like I told you, we were at the end of the highway near a gravel pit, and people weren't
Right.
really paying attention to us. So we kind of, I don't want to say got away with a lot of stuff, but we certainly had a lot more free reign.
You were kind of under the radar there. It's
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
Xbox is one of the largest divisions at Microsoft. It's a major consumer brand.
Yeah, we are the largest consumer brand at Microsoft by far, and you know, and with Phil, I mean, Phil Spencer, our head of Xbox, he reports directly to Satya Nadella, our CEO. So gaming is critically important to what we do at Microsoft as a whole, whether it's using our Azure services, whether it's using our development kits, whether it's using, you know, whatever it is in the stack, as we say in software, whatever it is in the stack, you know, we are a great showcase because millions of people use Microsoft products every day, whether it's Word, whether it's Excel, whether it's Outlook, whether it's Windows. And that's kind of the work you have to do. We're the kind of, you know, with this thing, we're the thing you want to go home and have fun with.
Right.
So.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this podcast for? It's been like 15 years, right? 16?
Yeah, it's been about 15 years, and you know, we migrated once COVID kind of went nuts, and that started happening. We converted. I built out the studio here with the lighting, much like your tech den over there, Lon.
Right.
With your pile of beige Macs in the back there. So,
I got to do some retro branding
it's,
on those. Yeah.
I know they look great, but it's you know, it's been 15 years and it's been a lot of fun to be able to kind of migrate. And again, take the audience with me. You know, you talked about how you were listening to me when you were younger, you know, and you're a great example of the type of person that listened to me or was following me. And now you're a little bit older. I mean, sorry to tell you, Lon, you're a little bit older like me. But you know, you've got a family now and you're probably introducing gaming to your kids. So this is, I'm part of your family in that kind of extracted way.
Right. No, you are. And it's helping me because I'm trying to find stuff that I can get them to play. And one of the things that's been great about Game Pass, and actually the interviews that you do on the podcast, is that you can get a little bit more of the story behind the game and determine from that whether or not it's, because it's very limited time that I have to play games with the kids at night. So we really want to focus in on something that I know they can play quickly. So the podcast has become very useful for, you know, not only for me, but also for family game time to get kind of that focus on what would be a
You need to check out Rainbow Billy.
Rainbow Billy. I'm gonna write that one down and check it out.
Write that down, Rainbow, because it's a game where it's a non-violent game where you have to paint the world with colors.
Oh my
Check
goodness,
out Rainbow Billy.
Why haven't I had
the interview?
I have not seen that one yet.
I had an interview about that a couple of weeks ago, so I think you should check that one out.
I will check it out. Now, how has it changed? You know, because podcasting's been around for a while. You're now doing video in addition to podcasting, or actually both at the same time, kind of like how I'm doing it. How have you had to adapt what you do based on how things have changed out in the media landscape here?
I mean, it's really just finding the new ways to deliver our message and educate people like you just talked about, Lon, where people are like looking for that next game to play. There's so much competition for our time, not just my time and yours, but everybody. You've got a million things on Netflix to watch. You have social media that's distracting and chirping at you every second. How do we get you to find a good game that you can play, you know, exactly what your problem is and get you in there? And that's kind of what Game Pass was all about. Is let's just get you subscribed to service. So the barrier to entry to play games is so low. You just have to download it. And not even that now. We now have the ability, we're going to start rolling it out broader, where you can go through here and stream games directly to your console and try them out before you download them.
Oh, that's so actually to the console versus just the phone.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been using the phone option for me because like I rather than I have a pretty fast internet connection, but still like you got to allocate storage and I just want to pick it up and try it out. Is it something I want to download?
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for
and
it
that
anymore,
allows you
to, do I want to download it?
Yeah, that allows you to do it with the streaming with Xbox Game Pass and the streaming to console that we're rolling out. And it's a great feature because exactly that. You can play like the first 10 minutes and go, okay, and then it's like I want to download it. Of course your save is just going to continue with you. Why wouldn't it? What we realized was that, you know, certainly we're going to continue to sell Xbox Series X's and Xbox Series S's. But Phil always wanted to reach as many gamers as possible. And there's millions of gamers out there that maybe can't afford a console. Maybe we don't even sell Xbox in their region, but maybe they have a mobile phone. Maybe they do that. Maybe we can get our services on there so that we can Game Pass now becomes a service that is available on a variety of devices. It's on PC, it's on it's on iOS, it's on Android. So that's kind of the next frontier. Are we going to continue to make consoles? Absolutely. But how do we get more? And that's what you want to do.
Right. I've got that Backbone controller on the iPhone.
I have mine over there. I love it. Lon, that's a funny story. I have a letter, and I don't have it with me. It's in the other room. But the developer of Backbone started listening to me when he was in college to my podcast, and I inspired him to. And I was so moved by this letter. I'm working on getting him on an upcoming show. You'll have to hear more about that. But it was one of those moments where I felt really. I was so pleased that I was able to, in some small way, help him achieve his dream.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think like you've been doing it for so long that a lot of us kind of grew up listening to you, as you mentioned, and getting into their careers and having kids and going different places, and I think to a degree, I shifted careers to do this, and a lot of that was kind of inspired by what you were doing in others, because
right.
I think up until that point in time, there wasn't a mechanism to get media out to the public in a way that wasn't through some other network or something.
It's now democratized.
Very much so, and it was really fun to see, that explosion of corporate communication going in that direction also, and you're kind of a pioneer in that space.
And it's great because I've working with our comms team. We have some of the most amazing, smartest communications people at the company, in the industry, and they always want to experiment. They want to fail. What doesn't work? Because we're going to find out what doesn't work, and then we're going to find out what does work. So we know that not everything's going to work, but I've never been told at Microsoft, and that's what's beautiful about this company. I've never heard someone come up with a great idea, and no one at the company's ever said, we don't have enough money for that. If it's a great idea, there's a way to fund it.
Let's try it. See what happens.
Let's try it.
Let's talk about life at Microsoft, because obviously this past year and a half has been a very big change in how people work.
Yeah.
What's it been like at the company for the period of time that you've been there, which is quite a while now?
I'll tell you this. It's, we'll get to that in a moment, but I want to talk about the fact that I've been at the company since, and this is going to blow your mind, Lon. Mm-hmm. I started at the company when Windows XP was in beta.
Oh my
God.
You're an old
so
timer.
go do the math on that one.
Yeah. Right.
And this version right now in 2021 is the best version of Microsoft I have ever seen. From our CEO with Satya Nadella and some of the great products we're producing and what we're doing for the world, it's just amazing. Making the migration to this remote situation that COVID has brought on has been really interesting, because I remember in 2018, I just had this conversation with one of our admins. I remember going to her desk and saying, hey, can you download this Teams thing? I want to try it out, and I don't have anybody to talk to. And so she's like, I don't understand this. And so I got our entire team in 2018 moved over to using Teams 2.5 years before people started using Zoom and Teams and what have you, and Slack. And Slack's been around for a while, but long story short is that we were a lot ahead of it, because I'm, much like you and much like your listeners and viewers, Lon, I'm a hardcore nerd. I love experimenting. So I was nerding out that we were trying to figure out what Teams is. And now Teams is a massive player in this market. And our team on the communication team was so far ahead, because we were like, okay, this makes sense. We'll just keep doing it.
Right.
It just was like a flywheel with our efficiency, and it's never stopped.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it was good that you got started when you did. So it was everybody was very, very proficient in it when it was time to get into it.
Everybody was ready to roll, but it's been a lot of fun.
Roll. And so you say too that Microsoft is kind of the best you've ever seen it be. What are some of the things that you think have contributed to that? Well, what's in the culture that makes that tick the way it does?
It all starts with our CEO, Satya, and our leaders with Phil and everyone else on the leadership team. They're so thoughtful. They're so caring, they're so understanding, and they just want to do the right thing. And the thing that I've loved over the past few years is just seeing the window of inclusivity get so big at the company. It's everybody is, and the inclusivity takes on a different, depending on how you can look at it in many, many different ways, certainly having a diverse background, diverse people that are working with you, but it also extends into the actual games. You know, are we seeing players that I can represent or I can recognize or I can connect with that look like me or that look like you or anyone else for that matter? You know, you and I look very similar, but there's a lot of people out there that maybe are looking for a character that they can really identify with. So it's been so great to see the change at our company, but also in the games industry of this more inclusive characters and lead characters that we see in games. That's been amazing.
And what's been fun about my Xbox upstairs, I bought I actually managed to find a Series X at retail a couple of during the rush for it. So I was very fortunate to get one. It looks like now they're starting to get a little bit more accessible. But I browsed through Game Pass with my daughter. And she picks out the games that she wants to play, and it's funny to watch her because she's drawn to those games with the female protagonists as kind of the ones that she wants to play. Yeah, and it's getting her into gaming,
which is great. I mean, and to your point, Lon, 10 or 15 years ago, there wasn't anything for them. There really wasn't. Certainly, Nintendo has an amazing catalog of games, but by and large, that was the games industry just really didn't have a lot to offer people like your daughter. So I'm so thrilled that we're doing that now. It's heartwarming.
And she devoured River City Girls. That was we were playing a lot of that. So that was a good one for her. What else is going on there that you think is exciting to you? Because, you know, in the tech industry, people tend to move around a lot, you know, but somebody starts at Microsoft, they go somewhere else. You've been there for a long time. What gets you, you mentioned a little bit that you're excited to come to work every day, but what's on the horizon? You don't have to give away anything, but you know, what gets you motivated to continue working at the same place every day?
What gets me motivated is, you know, the people that I work with and their desire to bring gaming to billions of people. We've talked about that with Phil, and he keeps, you know, he's how do we do that? Whether it's Game Pass, lowering the bar to download, whether it's, you know, allowing you to stream your games and play your games on, you know, Android devices or your iOS. So that's what gets me going. And, you know, I've been recruited by a lot of companies in the games industry over the years, and they've been wonderful offers, but I've just had to politely decline because what we're doing at Microsoft, nobody can bring to bear the heft of the technology that Microsoft has to offer, whether it's Azure for streaming, whether it's the tech stack, whatever it is, it's just such an exciting company to work at. And I get excited when I get to work on new products, and I can't really talk about much about that part of it, but that's what keeps me going is that they're like, there's always these great ideas and trying to figure out what to do next. So I'm having a great time. I'm having the best time, Lon. I really am.
Yeah, it's fun that you can get motivated every day with something new and exciting going on there. And I'm thinking with all the different divisions there's got to be a lot of cross-disciplinary work going on too. Because I'm sure I talk
to people in Azure or in our developer services. I had an interview with Panos, the head of Windows, a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's amazing the people that I can talk to at the company and I can chat with at the company. They're passionate about our customers and bringing great experiences.
And you're bringing a lot of those people onto your podcast too, so you can really get a good, you know. And again, I think what I like about the podcast is that it's not cut up. You're getting a conversation that's not been sanitized in.
Yeah, and thank you, Lon. I appreciate that because a lot of people don't know or don't recognize that distinction. Like when I record people, I'm like, hey, we're not going to edit this a lot. We're going to talk about what we're doing, and we're going to be honest and open as best we can. Because that's what people want. They don't want the scripted interviews and here's my talking points. They don't want that. They want a natural conversation.
And as you mentioned, there's risk there, but there's also a lot of reward. And I think the reward certainly outweighs the risk if you approach it smartly. And I think that's real credit to your work.
That's what I've been trying to do. Thank you, Lon.
So we got to nerd out a little bit here because what people don't know about you is that you are probably a bigger tech nerd than I am.
I was just about that.
But before the show, Major Nelson showed me his Unify setup, and it is like 12 times the size of mine. He's got that chart up. So what do you? And you always got some kind of thing going on over there. So what's your current project that you're nerding out on over there?
Well, I have an Unraid server, and my Unraid server, I just moved it into a new rack. I was telling you about that off the air before we started. And I get excited because my Unraid server, I just reconfigured the physicalness of it. It's the same machine. I just moved it around a little bit, and now it's running 22 degrees cooler. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. That's what kind of nerd I am. Yeah, it's an accomplishment. So there's that. I put up a Unify access point in my garage so I can get at so all my cars and everything, all my devices, all my lighting and my property is all covered. So that's really, I got that dialed in. To be honest with you, I couldn't do that. My wife and daughter went away for a few daws, and I couldn't do that when they were here because I'm sure the same thing happens to you, Lon. Why is the internet not working? When's it going to be back? Right?
Exactly. Trust me.
So
you can't touch
it's a little bit of a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I would get to the point where I would want to do network upgrades in my house when my wife was in the shower, right? So I'm rushing to do it. But, that's one thing I'm working on. I'm just, I've got a bunch of new PoE, Power over Ethernet cameras I just put in. I have a Blue Iris server that does all the video recording, which is amazing, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So that's the latest. I'm kind of looking at a few things. I think I'm going to rebuild another machine. I don't know. That's just looking for something fun to do.
So when you get home, you're tinkering, it sounds like.
Yeah, I have my life is digital and my hobby is digital. I do have non-tech hobbies. I'm a scuba diver. I love going to scuba diving. So there's things like that. I just haven't been able to do it as frequently, obviously, with COVID.
Right.
So I like to keep moving. I like to keep thinking. I would like to keep learning. Lon, like I want to understand why things work the way they do and why is it like this. Like one of the things that drives me crazy, Lon. Here, I'll tell you. I go to the store the other day. I want to know who is running the standard width of parking spaces because they're so close together. I can't get out.
Yeah.
So, like, is there a standards body that runs this? And why?
I have the same problem with my local group. Yeah.
Right, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I know what happens here in Connecticut, not to go off on a tangent, but they have like these requirements of certain numbers of parking spaces in a parking lot to meet the zoning minimums.
Right.
And then so they just make them closer together to the point that nobody can fit into them unless they're driving like a little Fiat or something. But it's
or a motorcycle. So I'm like, why we need to fix this. So anyway, so things I always want to know like who's making those decisions because they're not from because I work on products. It's not a good usability story. It doesn't make any sense. It's hard to figure out why is this? I can't even open my car door.
And so you working at Microsoft for that long, where you're focused almost entirely on the user experience because you're making software that people interact with. It must be
millions of people.
It must drive you crazy. Like you see this stuff all the time. You can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm looking at why. But my always thing is like, why is it like that? And meanwhile, I have my neighbors are like, why do you care? I'm like, well, I want to understand what was this decision? Why is this like that? So I'm always asking. I mean, I sound like my 4-year-old. Why is that? What's going on here? Puzzling. So.
But that's the kind of curiosity that leads to good products. Has it worked in the reverse? Have you seen things out in the world that you could say, ooh, that would fix this problem at Xbox?
Yeah, I guess in a little bit, certainly there's a lot of examples of, people borrowing ideas and getting inspired by, but yeah, I mean, I can't point to a particular feature, but it definitely feels like the right thing. We're trying to make this or the Xbox Series S. I'm pointing at my Series X behind me.
Yeah.
Just operate better in your AV ecosystem.
Right. Yeah, it's gotten a lot better because it's now like detecting everything properly. It can do. It's been
that CEC stuff is working, isn't it, Lon?
Yeah, it's working very nice. I still have to tweak some things. I have too much stuff hooked up there. My wife wants it simplified because I have like 12 remotes right now. We've got to maybe it's another video topic.
She's not wrong. This is a big problem. It's a very big problem.
It's got to get addressed. So it's on the list.
And it's only getting worse because did I read that Logitech is decommissioning their smart remotes, their Harmonies?
Yep. They have.
Who's going to pick up that ball, right?
Exactly. And I'm starting to see like different companies approach it. So you have that, through the Xbox. I'm seeing it also with Amazon where they're having the A word kind of do that sort of thing. So you could say to A word, hey, turn on the Xbox, and it does the right input. It turns on the television. The Xbox boots up, and you're ready to go. But yeah, there's a lot of.
Do you have a lot of that product in your house? A lot of the ALEXA stuff?
A little bit. I review a lot of it, but what's funny is I actually got more into the Google stuff, and the reason is that I had this vision in my head of the Star Trek computer, and and my kids, this, having kids too, like they ask crazy questions, and like I don't know the answer to that, so I'm like, hey, who? What's the whatever? Right. And it usually comes back with something useful that's enough to get the kid thinking about how to research more. So that has been my...
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been great because when you and I were growing up, we would have those arguments on the playground, and if we really took it the distance, we'd go to the library, right?
That's exactly
But usually
it.
it just stopped.
You just stopped it. Well, it was funny because I remember I remember this very clearly. I once wanted to know what happened. I was very afraid of bees as a kid, and I wanted to know what happened to them
Sure.
in the winter. And my mom was from Brooklyn, New York. She had no idea. So she took me to the library. We talked to the librarian. It took about 2 or 3 hours to learn how the bees
Right.
survive in the winter. Now you can just get the answer like that. So it's changed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What are they? You can actually, yeah, and I'm sure you could probably find a video somewhere, a live feed of here's bees hibernating for the winter.
Yeah, and now you've got all the answers right in front of you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Now, you're also an AV nerd on top of being
Yes.
a tech nerd, and COVID certainly has created a lot of challenges. I had a local news anchor interviewing me for a story yesterday, and he was talking about all the struggles he had over the last year broadcasting from his house, and it's funny to see all
Yeah.
these people become like YouTubers now. You had to do that also. We're running very similar systems, but can you talk a little bit about how you produce the podcast now?
Yeah, sure. I've got a pretty hefty, beefy gaming PC under my desk here, and that kind of is running vMix, which is I think you've talked about that before. vMix is a great piece of software, and I mix everything live. So I've got a couple monitors here. I've certainly got the 1 gig Comcast coming in, and I host everything here and mix it all live. The key is, and I'm going to send you the parts list for this, is I actually have this teleprompter here that brings everything up, and so I can look into the without breaking eye contact. I can really. I got to find my mouse actually. Without breaking eye contact, I can bring up like a trailer or a screenshot of something like that, or my desktop. I can do any types of those things. So it's been very helpful to have all of that ready. Like here's a background. This is the background of one of the backgrounds for the
cool.
Series X. So I can do all of that without breaking the screen and being able to look at. In this case, I'm looking directly at you. So that's been a part of it. But I mean, really, the hardest part has been actually, and Lon, I think you'll appreciate this, is recording each week and getting my co-host is keeping my daughter quiet in the other room.
Yeah,
So that's been
I
the
got 2
challenge.
upstairs right now that I'm like, keep it down up there, banging on the ceiling.
keep it down.
That's the hard part, absolutely, because life comes in. You're not at the office anymore, and your workflow it seems like is very similar to mine in that you're shooting everything live to disk and then just kind of piecing it together and pumping it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I'm doing my interviews, I'm doing the switching myself. That's what it's called. The switching, I'm doing that all myself here, so that when they talk about, I bring up the lower thirds and the whole thing and the videos. I'm doing all that live, and sometimes I screw it up. And it's just like, hey, that's what it is. So I actually have to do the interview and run the. So it's basically I'm doing like 4 people's job in television as one writer, maybe even more.
That's
but
exactly
it's
how I do
it's.
it.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I worked in broadcast for a long time. I've done thousands of live TV hours, and it's a lot of fun. It gets me going because once it's done, it's done.
Right, and I'm in the same boat. For me, it was just I do exactly what you do. I switch live to disk, and if I've got a issue that develops during the recording, I'll just patch it with some B-roll later and just kind of get it out there and be done with it. And I think it's more real that way, and I think that's what's been so appealing about what you do. And when you're working on all this stuff, you have other things you do at Microsoft. I mean, you're part of the communications team. So how much of your time is community? How much of is it the internal stuff?
It's a majority of it is the internal stuff, and the internal stuff is planning for future events, future products, working with our engineering team on developing features and understanding what the feature is, so that I can go out and go, okay, how am I going to explain this feature? Oh, I see how it is, and so learning to tell those stories. I mean, the modern way of putting it is I'm a storyteller, and we tell stories about our products. I tell stories about Xbox, so it's a vast majority of what I do, and it's part of what keeps me going every day.
Excellent. Well, hey, first of all, thank you very much for coming on. We've been trying to put this together for a while now, and I'm glad we both had our calendars align so we could make it happen. What else would you like the viewers to know about what's coming up in the future, if anything? I know you can't break.
I just want to thank. I want to first of all congratulate you, Lon, because I know you talked earlier about you were doing another job and you started doing this. You do such a great job, and I've told you this. I think I told you this on a Clubhouse, or it was a Twitter thing a few weeks ago. Yeah. Is that when I'm building my Unraid server, or I'm looking at Ubiquity, I'm doing a web search, you pop right at the top, and I'm like, "There's Lon,"
That's
and
my
he's doing
strategy.
it. I go right to it. Yeah, and it works, and it's great because it seems like you and I'll just say this: if you and I were neighbors, we would get along famously. You and I would be like exchanging so much nerd stuff and running cables and doing stuff. Our wives would probably kick us out.
Oh, we would have fiber optic cables going back and forth. It would be It would be quite a scene.
Ridiculous. We'd have redundancy, but
Yeah.
it's I just want to say I really appreciate all the hard work you've been doing over the years on behalf of just consumer technology and electronics, because it's been so great to see you grow and be successful in your channel. And just to be able to be, offer a little bit of, be a part of it in this little way is really exciting for me. And I want to thank everybody for all the great, they can hit me up on Twitter at Major Nelson, and all the great folks who said wonderful things over the years, and maybe some not so wonderful things, but it's great to have you there anyway.
And where can people find the podcast? It's everywhere, I guess. If you just look for is it now the official Xbox? I knew it as Major Nelson Radio, right? That was the original.
Yeah. That was the original. It's now the official Xbox podcast. You can find us on Google. You can find us on Apple. MajorNelson.com, which is my blog /podcast. It's right there. Got a YouTube channel. You'll see it all. I mean, we can't swing a dead cat without hitting this thing.
But it's been around for so long. It's just there. It lives.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's this weird thing. But anyway, yeah. It's just so great to talk to you, and I would love to come on again sometime, and we can talk about what we're playing.
And you know what? I bet what we'll hear from the viewers is things that we didn't talk about that they want to hear about. So we'll definitely have to schedule this again. And I'm hoping
tell us what you want to know. I mean, there's certain things I can't tell you, but if you want me to tell you about my Ubiquity setup or my Unraid server, I'm happy to share all the details because I want to learn. I want people to be able to learn from what I do.
Great. We'll dig into it. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And whenever I load up my Xbox, I think of you. And I see you sometimes on it too. You just can't get away from you. But
thank you, Lon. Well, listen, keep up the great work, and we'll chat with you later. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. So a big thank you to Larry for joining us on the show this week. It was really fun to learn more about his origin story at Microsoft, and I also enjoyed comparing production notes with him because we both run with essentially the same workflow. So it's always good to compare notes and make sure I'm operating in the most efficient way. He's got a great idea for a teleprompter that I might look at putting together very soon. Now, this week's show is brought to you by all of you, and I have 2 new supporters to thank on the channel. Paul Brayron contributed via our donor box page, and Jennifer Hurd contributed via the YouTube membership program. If you want to support the channel, you can. You can go to Lon.TV/support and make a monthly or a one-time contribution to the channel. In addition to the donor box page that you'll find there, we also support Patreon, we support the YouTube membership program, and Floatplane. And I do want to thank everyone who contributed this week and everyone who's been contributing on an ongoing basis, but also those of you who just watch on a regular basis too, because all of those things equal channel growth. Now, if you're new to my channel, I cover a lot of technology products, and we cover them in a bunch of different ways. So you can find me in a lot of different places. We have my Extras channel, which has unboxings and supplementary content and some reviews of minor gadgets and whatnot. We have my podcast feed, which is an audio version of this show that you can find in your favorite podcatchers. We also do a lot on Amazon, and if you head over to Lon.TV/Amazon shop, you can watch all of my content ad-free, and we also do live streams over there while simulcasting over to YouTube as well. So there's a lot of different places you can catch up on all of my tech reviews. If you want to engage with the channel, you can visit my very infrequent email list at Lon.TV/email. We also have my Facebook group, which is well over 1,000 members now, and we're slowly building up a Discord community too. And then we also have my store where I sell previously used items that I reviewed here on the channel. And my pile is growing, so I'm due to be updating that store very shortly. And if you want to be notified whenever I add something to that store, you can go to Lon.TV/store alert so you can get notified the second those new items go live. There's usually only one of everything because it's the actual item that I reviewed here on the channel. And that is going to do it for this week's weekly wrap-up. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I had a lot of fun doing that interview over the weekend. I will be having an appearance soon at Retro World Expo on November 6th and 7th here in Connecticut. So if you're around, definitely check it out. I think I'm getting a coupon code for that very shortly. A lot of fun retro YouTubers are going to be there, including my buddy Metal Jesus and Retro RGB and a bunch of other folks. So definitely check it out if you're in the area. I'll be doing a panel discussion on the Mr. FPGA project. So that's going to be a fun one for sure. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Hot Sauce and Video Games, Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Tom Albrecht, Thomas Anfang, Jim Tanis, and Handheld Obsession. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.